It's so great to see you on this beautiful spring day. I will call to order the Management Committee meeting for May 8th. And we do have a quorum. So without objection, we're going to get the meeting started. So again, thanks to everyone for being here today, and we welcome everybody who is viewing from home or somewhere else on the planet. We have before us the agenda, and we've had a chance to look that over. Are there any changes or additions, anything to questions? Seeing none, then without objection, I will move on, and the agenda is approved. We also have before us the draft minutes of the April 24th meeting of the Management Committee. Again, we've had a chance to review all of these. They've been posted. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, edits? All right, seeing none, I entertain a motion to then approve the draft minutes of the April 24th meeting.
So moved.
Second. By Councilmember Osmond, second by Councilmember Lilligren. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed no, and that passes unanimously, so thank you for that. We'll now move on to our one non-consent business item from reports of standing committees. We have the 2024-119 Worker Compensation Liability Bill Review and Pharmacy Program. This is contract 18P132A. It's Amendment 3, and we've got, I believe, Michael Cowell, Director of Risk Management, coming before us today. So welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair and the Management Committee. Yes, my name is Michael Cowell, and I am the new Director of Risk Management. And with me today is Derek Knorr. He is the Business Systems Analyst for the Risk Management Department. So the item in front of you today is Amendment 3, which is the 2-year extension of the Workers' Compensation Liability Bill Review and Pharmacy Program with Rising Medical Solutions. Their services keep the Risk Management Department in compliance and ensure that we are following all the required state statutes during the bill review and payment process for our workers' compensation and our liability claim payments. As stated, this is a 2-year contract expiring on April 30th, 2026 for an additional amount of $224,000 that will bring the total amount of the contract to $674,000 over a 7-year period. So today we are asking for the approval from the Management Committee because this amendment exceeds the 10% of the original contract and exceeds the cumulative value of $500,000. Thank you very much for your time. Are there any questions?
Does the committee have any questions?
I have a question.
Councilmember Cedar.
I'm just reading this, and so you executed the contract in 2019, right? The initial contract, so it's 2024. And so so that's 5 years. And so was there kind of an assessment done on how well they performed in the last 5 years to kind of look and say that they met their obligations and exceeded expectations or something to continue working with them as opposed to going out for a new contract?
Yes, I mean, as I said, I'm new myself, but I did ask, yes, as part of this process, and I did ask my team as we were going through this process of deciding what best to do, you know, what did they like with the services that Rising Medical was providing, and this gave us a opportunity then to kind of bring them in and discuss any additional things that we wanted them to improve on, which was done. And as a result of that meeting with them, yes, we felt that the current or the previous services that they were providing, as well as what they promised in the future, were going to meet all of our needs.
Thank you. Great, thank you. I was thinking of that question myself. Do you think that after this amendment is done, we would likely again put it out then in an RFP, or?
Yes, correct. That is the plan.
Okay.
That's why it was a 2-year.
Yes.
Compared to anything longer. They had even asked for us to go longer. We're like, no, we just want to do 2 years. And the plan is, yes, to go out for a full RFP after the 2 years.
Okay, and does this, and I know Joe is here, does this at some point qualify for maybe trying to hit our DBE or MCube goals in this type of?
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Then,
Right. Any further questions? All right, then seeing none, we have before us the proposed motion or proposed action that the council authorizes the regional administrator to execute an amendment to contract 18P 13-2A with Rising Medical Solutions to provide electronic medical bill review and processing for workers' compensation and liability claims, pharmacy benefits program, and managed care services for a total contract value of $674,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Cedarburg, is there a second? Seconded by Osmond. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously, so thank you very much. I appreciate that report and welcome aboard. How long have you been with us?
I have been here for 7 months.
Well, we're very glad you're still with us. So, hang in there.
As am I. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank
I just hit 1 year too, so.
Well, and there you go.
Congratulations.
Happy first anniversary.
Thank you very much.
You've got some longevity, so thank you. Perfect. Yeah, we do really appreciate your hard work and look
Yes,
forward
thank
to
you.
seeing you again.
Yes.
All right, now we're gonna move on to our information section of our agenda. And we'll have our quarterly procurement and MCube goals review. We've got Jody Jacoby, our Procurement Director, and Shante Payne, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity Assistant Director. So great to see you both again today, and thank you. I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
Awesome, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Jody Jacoby, Chief Procurement Officer. And with me is Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director of the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. And just like quarters before, we're here to present to you a little bit more information on the procurement summary for the first quarter of this year. Looking at not only contracts that were executed, but also the impact and the actual information on the MCube commitments. The council's expenditure policy 14-2 for the procurement of goods and services authorize the regional administrator to approve awards not exceeding $500,000 for goods and services and construction projects not exceeding $10 million. Of course, if it's within the adopted capital budget and it's less than 10% of the engineer's estimate. That's part of our standard process. And you've seen some of these contracts above these values through specific individual business items. They're independently approved and executed. And the information item that you have here before you today, and you'll also notice the presentation is a little bit different to help walk through some of the different pages because there's a lot of data to help understand what happened in first quarter and give you a chance not only to learn a little bit more information, but to ask some questions. This list contains procurements greater than $175,000. And that threshold is significant as that's the state statute where we formally advertise goods and services. And we do that by publishing those individual opportunities on the council's doing business page. And then we also work with Quest CDN, which is a third-party bidding platform to download those documents. And I'll start, and it's pretty cool to have this PowerPoint, thanks Lori. I'll start with reviewing a little bit of the high-level procurement summary, looking at what happened this first quarter, and I'm gonna need my glasses because that is pretty small. But as you'll see on this slide and represented as slide 2 in your packet, that there were 8,651 individual procurement events, and the value executed was just over $377 million. The number of transaction is pretty typical compared to previous quarters and pretty close to what was first quarter last year. At the bottom left-hand corner, you see the pie chart with the procurements by percent by number of transactions. And looking at the number of transactions, again, this is very typical. 96% of those transactions are less than $10,000. We point that out not only, it's an interesting statistic and it trends with other quarters, but also illustrates the significant number of opportunities for new vendors, for MCube vendors, and other vendors getting contracting opportunities at the council. And then on the right side, procurements by contract value, again for that first quarter, where 96% of those by the value were over $175,000. And again, that's the threshold where we formally advertise our projects. And then I'm going to talk through just a little bit more information, and you can walk through each of these slides and just see again the information is grouped on makes sense to us. If it doesn't make sense to you, we'd be willing to hear your feedback. But it's grouped on different values. This page is details on requests for proposal, and that again is where we're asking a consultant to help us solve a problem, help us source a solution, and price is one of the determining factors. And again, like other quarters before, it's represented with the contractor name, the amount, the division it was for, a description, the location of the contractor, the contract number. If the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunities set a DBE goal or an MCube goal, it's in that column. And then the final column is that final commitment that was contractually obligated by the consultant.
Jody, just one question on that.
Yeah.
So, PeopleSoft, so are we still using PeopleSoft? Was that up for an RFP too recently?
Madam Chair, council members, the PeopleSoft administration is, we have chosen PeopleSoft as we're gonna be using the procurement modules.
Okay.
And so it's for a consultant to help us do that implementation.
Okay, thank you.
Sticking with the theme that you've heard before from procurement and the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity, data is really helping us drive direction, drive decisions, and then provide valuable information that guides our strategy and helps us really achieve those strategic shared goals. And just looking at highlights from quarter one, it demonstrates really that success in some of those contracts in looking at the spend that was awarded to MCube that exceeds the MCube requirement that was set by the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. And in tracking this data, we look at two key performance indicators. First, how well the council is educating and informing the market with our DBE program, and then the market's understanding of our program. And we do that through commitments, letter of intents, good faith efforts, navigating the MCube directory, and then finding partners with MCubes. And there's additional benefits to the council that this category of data also doesn't quantify. And it's that the more familiar our prime contractors become familiar with MCubes, the more that they utilize and understand the value in that partnering relationship. And also utilizing the MCubes as subcontractors really in their sweet spot and their areas of expertise. And what we're seeing through this transition and through this data is services that were historically performed by a prime contractor are now, some of them are being performed and subcontracted to MCubes, not just to achieve the goal, but to provide the best value and the most advantageous outcome for the council. So what does that mean? It means the council is receiving services from the most qualified contractors and consultants in the subcontracting area and really working to develop those underutilized businesses in the region, giving the small businesses experience and familiarity in doing business, which in turn gives them an opportunity to grow and propose and bid on areas as an expertise as a prime contractor. And in this quarter for the category of data, the council has awarded an additional $13,075,000 to MCubes. And to put this in perspective versus previous or historical quarters. In the previous 6 quarters, from quarter 3 of 2022 to quarter 4 of 2023, the council awarded an additional $14,540,000 in this category. And so what's different? Many of the MCubs awarded are now performing the work as a prime contractor. And these are MCubs that previously we've seen just partner as a subcontractor on a project with an MCub goal or through one of the MCub programs. And we're seeing these in the area of MCub Direct, MCub Select, and MCub Preference. And you've heard about the IT staff augmentation project before, but on this quarter, that's where you're seeing some of those projects. And that was really, again, a collaborative effort with many, many people council-wide. Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity did a significant amount of outreach with those vendors, identifying areas with a target business and including a pre-solicitation meeting, an MCub meet and greet, advance notice, Quest CDN training, and a contract overview. And as we continue to grow and develop small businesses and MCubs, we're also going to continue to look at projects and opportunities that lead to a similar success. So with the contracts before you on this report, before I transition to Ashanti to share some specific data and details, I think it's important to recognize and acknowledge that effort. And then for you as council members to hear that, we're also taking that information and some of those initiatives that we lifted up as best practices moving forward.
Thank you, Jody.
Oh, yeah, I'll give you the clickers.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Council and committee members. Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity, and just here to share with you our first quarter MCub participation outcomes. And
So all of those slides were an overview of what you were saying. So I think just for the public, we'll try to maybe move those slides forward as we're talking so that everybody can see what's going on.
It's hard to follow.
Yeah.
The conversation didn't match the slide.
Yeah.
Slide never moved.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, we'll sync that up. So Ashanti, back to you.
yes, and just for references, I will advance the slides, but the report for MCub starts after page 12 of the procurement report. And if you recall, in 2023, we, for the first time, started reporting on commitments. And you'll actually really see why that's important as we go through this. But bottom line is for Q1, we had 30.2% MCub commitment percentage, which exceeds the 14% goal. And we did that, the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity only set MCub goals on 3 projects. And those were all stemming from environmental services projects. So this was not done through our regular regulatory compliance efforts. And this is really being driven by the project Jody was referencing, that IS staff augmentation project. I think that project is important for multiple reasons, some of which Jody shared, but also it brings in a lot of the demographics that we often don't see significant participation from or at this level. As you see, firms owned by Black Americans, Asian Pacific and Asian subcontinent Americans dominate this report. So, and that is largely due to, it doesn't take a lot of capital to get into consulting or IS work. You don't have to buy major equipment. to participate. It's really your education, your training, and intellect. So it brings in demographics that sometimes we don't see participating at levels and as primes. And also shows that, through collaborative efforts, cross divisions and departments, the work that we can do when we put our efforts and intention behind it. When you break that down by division, again, you'll see that environmental services at 13.7%. I put them in yellow just because I wanted to give them some credit. If you round up, we can get to 14%. And then also, normally, regional administration normally has a high level of participation, but it doesn't impact the report the way it does this time because of that IS staff augmentation project. The dollars that regional administration commits to contracted services is not at the level of the other two divisions that do a lot of construction and consultant work. So, but Metro Transit and MTS did have 0%, and that is really due to either the projects that they procured this quarter either were federally funded and may have had DBE goals, but if you see on that blue line, that blue bar, they did have some contracts that could have been potentially for MCUB participation, but they were either procured as a sole source or through other means that didn't warrant an MCUB goal. Just wanted to show our historical MCUB commitment over time. At least the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023, we have met or exceeded the goal in terms of our commitment. And then again, the blue bar represents all of the contracts that potentially could have had MCUB participation. The green bar represents the dollars that would have met any goals that were established on the contracts, and the red bar is the actual commitments. And we have exceeded those commitments relative to the goal in each of those years. We also have our payment and expenditures data, and we separate that out. PCAR, where we have a 10% goal. I do want to highlight community development because since Q1 of 2023, well, after Q1 of 2023, they have consistently exceeded that goal of 10.6%. So whatever they're doing, we need to tap into that. Also, in terms of our payments and how that breaks out in terms of PO expenditures, I think there's not a lot of logical stories we can tell with payments currently, but one of the ones that we can tell, if you see that column with the zeros, that represents direct payments to MCUBs. So we know that's where we have a big disparity. That's where our biggest disparity is with MCUBs and DBEs participating as primes. So there were no direct payments in the quarter to MCUBs and primes, although there were to subcontractors and of course with our P-card. But that also goes to show you with this quarter, once those IS augmentation projects start to go through the payment cycle, then we will see payments on that side. And that's why it's important to look at both in the reporting and why we made that change at the beginning of last year. And then the graph kind of breaks it out. Still see the majority going to white women-owned firms, but I will say that is a lot less certainly than when I came to the council. And also, if you look even regionally at some of our regional partners and nationally, it's usually around 80%. So 48% does show that we're becoming more equitable in how those dollars are being expended in our region. And then also the breakdown of number of firms. This gives us gives us an idea of both sustainability and how that breaks down in the number of firms that are participating. And as you see, again, white women-owned firms and black owned firms are the top two in terms of number of firms that are participating or received payments. Just in terms of some of the highlights that occurred, MCube Direct spend success. MCube Direct is any purchases up to $25,000 we can directly, without competition, procure with an MCube. And Q1 2023, MCube Direct spend was 14%, and this quarter, Q1, it's 20%. And over these past 2 years, we've continued to see significant growth with our MCube Direct spend. Also, MCube Preference. MCube Preference provides a bid preference to MCubs that are bidding as a prime, a 6% bid preference. That doesn't mean we accept the bid at 6% lower. It's just in terms of evaluating who the low bidder is. And JPMI Construction was awarded a contract. And then also our MCube state contract success. A lot of times, I think many people view the state contract that voids us of having MCube participation, and which we do see MCube participation, and there are MCubs on that state contracting list. So it doesn't automatically mean we can't have MCube participation when we utilize the state contract. Also, our supplier diversity efforts. We've been tracking this since we started this effort and partnered with Procurement. On the first partnership was with New Flyer and B&L Contracting. And you can see the growth since that was initiated in September of 2022. I don't know anyone else in the region in terms of our partner agencies that has a program like this. So we are definitely showing leadership in this space. And these vendors can definitely be utilized by our other partners, like MnDOT, who does provide rural transit services at a much smaller level than we do, but they do have it, and these firms can now participate on those projects as well. And then GILIG with MA Associates, that's more recent from 2023. Those firms are showing growth as well. And I just wanted to highlight 4 MCube businesses, including these 2, because the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity has been getting out to some of these procurement and outreach events, including the state procurement event, Hennepin County Procurement Fair, the Small and Disadvantaged Business Advisory Council, as we refer to as SADBOC, Procurement Fair, which draws over 2,000 businesses, and the State Procurement Fair. All of those events, OEEO staff was approached by businesses to share their stories. So New Flyer approached one of our staff at Hennepin County and wanted to tout this partnership and wanted to share that now that they're going to be expanding into other states with this and working with New Flyer. MA Associates approached one of our staff members to share that she's been able to hire 3 additional people just from this partnership with GILIG. And then in terms of the IS staff augmentation, HIGHLevel approached us as well, just to say that, the meetings that we've been inviting them to, the meet and greets, and the time that we've been requesting from them, that it paid off, it was worthwhile. So a lot of times we ask of these businesses and they don't see, well, should I go, should I not? They wanted just to share that this paid off. And then lastly, a business that I'm very familiar with, tracked me down, literally, to share the story. He said, I just want to tell you and congratulate your staff. He wanted to tout my team just in terms of this was someone who had a long career at MnDOT and was contemplating leaving that career to start his own business, he and his wife. And they made the leap of faith, and he said mainly it was because working with our staff here at the council, the information and service that they provided made it so much easier. And then also, he wanted to really say that the supportive services and assistance was key as well. As you are aware, this council provided funds for us to do, for the first time in our history, a supportive services contract to provide technical assistance, support to certified small businesses. And he's been awarded a $500,000 contract, not with us, with MnDOT, but I think there's more to come with us. So it just goes to the points in all of our strategic goals that we have in the region about our economy, growing our economy, sustaining it, job creation. Those things are important, and those individual stories are important. I'm glad I can share them with you today. I wanted to also point out that the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity have been holding our small business contracting training, goal setting, in a series that we are beginning in the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity called Engage OEO. So that has gotten some good feedback. I mentioned the SADBOC Procurement Fair, OEEO, and Procurement had a table there, and the other events, and the support services contract with Project Solutions. That project was up on Jody's screen. There was no commitment or participation, but I do want to point out that is a DBE, but a DBE from South Dakota that is providing those services. They have a long history in this space. They operate the supportive services programs for South Dakota DOT and Iowa DOT. And now we have them on board at the council. And we are also in the midst of conducting a small business equity audit that is being led by a third party, Strong and Starlight. We just started the kind of internal data analysis, and then we've had some listening sessions, both with businesses, large and small, and internally with council staff. And with that, we will rest for questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
I just have a question, Madam Chair, about, it just sounds like that whole training program is just really, have you heard that the word is getting out that you have the training and you're attracting more people just when you have a good program like that? Is the numbers coming in to get trained increasing, and are you?
Yes, I just had a conversation with the staff person who's managing this project, who also did this similar work at MnDOT, and he said he hasn't experienced this level of interest in these activities. We have 60 some businesses registered for the next session. I'm trying to remember which one it is. We have 40 registered for construction safety. Then we have navigating the change order process, one-on-one business consultation, how to find opportunities with the council, and then how to respond to RFPs with the council. So a lot of interest, tracking that and making sure that we can deliver. So yes.
I mean, what it's showing me is by kind of opening the doors and being transparent and helping is you're really reaching out and saying everybody belongs in the pool of who we're going to get work from. So I think that's such a positive message that, you know, you're not turned away, you know, we need to help you and you belong and you're worthy of, you know, getting projects from us and we want you to. So it just, it's amazing that the numbers are going up as well, so.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Cedarburg, so that's some of the external training. I think it's also impactful and important to recognize that in the last year, procurement and we've partnered with OEO on internal trainings. And at the end of last year, we trained almost 1,100 internal staff. And we continue every quarter to look at the offerings to determine what's right. There's definitely a lot of trainings like Procurement 101, small business. We've had some trainings on how to contract with an MCube provider, how to find an MCube provider in the directory. But being more transparent and helping show and teach our internal staff has also facilitated better conversations. We believe that that also has helped increase that percentage of direct, MCube direct, to some of our MCube vendors and has just really helped, again, internally provide more information to be able to help the entire region and the businesses. So that's another piece as well. We call it Procurement University.
Oh, that's
But
great.
we continue to look at that and recognize that besides just the compliance and the outcome, that we also have a responsibility for training.
Thank you.
Thank you. To that point, I think it's essential to train people. Otherwise, there's a missing link in the whole thing. So thank you for that. And I would imagine that it's got to be a requirement for people who are onboarding at some point in their earlier careers, so that we're not missing people along the way. I just think it's that critical. You've all got a lot on your plates. I know that. We have a lot of unfilled positions here. Everybody's carrying a lot more weight than they probably normally would. But I just think it's very admirable and essential to get people trained up as soon as possible. And the only other thing I would say is, you can see where we're having some consistent good results, but we are still missing people in this region as it relates to their ethnicity or race. And so I think that's something that obviously you guys are working on very hard, but we want to make sure that there's numbers showing up across the board whenever possible. Anybody else? Councilmember Pacheco?
Yeah, sure. It's, maybe you've seen it too, but recently I've seen more and more funding, especially from DEED, to entrepreneurs. And so it's not just workforce, but how do you get these businesses going? And the chamber has a couple contracts now just to bring small businesses into the trainings that's offered and try to match them up with workforce. So I'm appreciating the work you're doing. I'm really looking forward to the project, the small business, what was it called there? Anyway.
The equity audit?
Equity audit, small business equity audit. I'm really looking forward to that because I did see the RFP and read through that. There's some really key points that I could use. So I like the work that you all are doing. It's really showing up.
And I like how you've rounded on social media and you're giving us stuff as council members in our inboxes, because I started to forward it because it's very clear and concise. I don't have to go back to a report or try to bother you guys, and so that's been helpful too, I think. Anything else on this? Councilmember
Yeah, Madam Chair, I
Lilligren?
just want to really lift up everyone's comments here and agree and really congratulate you, Jody, and Ashanti and your teams on being able to bring us these kinds of encouraging numbers. And I really appreciate Ashanti sharing that story, right? That anecdotal story, and we invested in these efforts and we didn't yield, or we haven't yet. You know, the individual you talked about has a nice contract with the state, but we're increasing the pool within the entire ecosystem, and I feel like that's a really good use of our money. And you know, we haven't yet maybe connected that, in that case, that investment to or that progress to our investment, but it's all part of the same thing. And I just think that's a really good lesson for us here.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Absolutely, Councilmember. Money is money.
Money is money,
So let's
right?
get it out there.
Opportunities are opportunities.
Absolutely. Anything else? All right, well, thank you both for your report.
Thank you.
Very, very informative. Appreciate your work. And I will just put a pin in this. Councilmember Dolkar had some questions that she had asked me after our last council meeting around how do we make sure that more contracts have MCube or DBE. So if you wouldn't mind just reaching out back to her, I'd asked her maybe put it in an email, but if you could just connect with her and just let her know that because she would like some more information to come to management, but we were meeting so quickly, I was like, I gotta loop the two of you in, but I'm just trying to do that now, so if that would be all right. If you want to get a moment, just reach back to her. Thank you both, we appreciate all your hard work. Okay, now we can move on to, more good stuff.
Show me the money.
Yeah, our next item under information is investment review. It's our first quarter for 2024. And again, we'll bring up Mark Thompson, our Director of Treasury. And after that, we'll do our 2024 bond sales results. So welcome, Mark. Great to see you again.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. You want to hear about money, huh?
Yeah.
So yes, Mark Thompson, I'm the Treasury Director of the Council, and I am here. I've got two business items like you mentioned. The first one is the quarterly review I do of our investment portfolios. I'll talk a little bit about the economy and then we'll jump into the three different portfolios and tell you how we did this quarter. It's all good news, so I'll get into the details in a moment, but better remember to change these, right? Let's see, so I've got 4 or 5 slides to tell you what happened with the economy. This first one is showing gross domestic product. Our GDP was down for the quarter to 1.6%, and you can see this slide shows the past 6 quarters or so. It was still a solid quarter. We just came in a little bit lower at 1.6 versus 2.5 was kind of the expectation. Estimates for next year are still in that 2 to 3% range. I think and I'll get into a little bit more in a minute, there's more and more talk of a possible slowdown in some of the sectors of the economy later this year, but first quarter was strong. Really kind of the weak points of the quarter was trade, which really is not really affecting the consumer as much, so that was maybe something we can recover from as far as GDP goes, and housing was a little bit light. So that's kind of the things that caused some decrease during the first quarter. Inflation, of course, this is the big talk in the financial markets right now is inflation. This slide shows PCE deflator, which is one measure of inflation. It's the Fed's favorite, so I like to watch it too. It's 2.7% had finished the quarter. CPI is a more common measure that was at 3.5. Both were higher than expectations, higher than the Fed wants at 2%. And I think what scared the markets at the end of the first quarter and into April was the uptick. You can kind of see a little bit there in April. The trajectory of inflation changed so that we saw upticks in inflation in all 3 months of the quarter. So that put a little fright in the market and kind of changed people's thoughts on potential rate cuts that the Fed might be doing in this year. We'll talk about that more. The labor market, the first quarter the labor market was strong, but like I mentioned, there's some cracks in this market, and it's kind of poised for a slowdown. But during the first quarter, it was strong. We had 276,000 jobs added per month, which is good, really good, higher than the fourth quarter, which was 212. The employment rate during the first quarter was steady, below 4%. It's been below 4% for 26 months, which is a ton of time, and it's a record length. And finished March at 3.8%, which is great. But just this past Friday, we did get some April employment data, which was very weak. So that kind of changed people's thoughts on where the labor market might be headed. Employment ticked up to 3.9%. The jobs added in April were 175, which is really low. The employment cost index jumped higher, so that's not good for employers. And wage growth was also a little weaker. So April showed a big change in the labor market. It's just 1 month, so time will tell how that proceeds, but that's certainly something the Fed will be watching too. And, the slower growth and the change in the labor market has really made the markets look at what, Fed expectations have changed. We began the year, people were thinking there was going to be 6 rate cuts in '24, and now at the end of the first quarter, it was down to 2, because of the higher inflation, and now with the slowing growth in labor market, people are now moving the rate cuts back up. So right now, expectations are for a possible first rate cut in September or December of this year, but certainly down from the 6 people we're looking at the beginning of the year. So the Treasury yield curve, this just kind of gives you an idea what happened with interest rates in the first quarter. The dotted line is where we ended the year, 23, and the solid blue line is the end of the first quarter. So rates across the maturity spectrum increased. Obviously, the short-term rates to the far left there are near 540, and those won't really come down until the Fed starts cutting rates. The intermediate part of the curve is really dictated by the markets and the inflation, economic activity expectations of the market. So if I were to show you today's curve, it would look the same shape. It would be even higher, about 20 more basis points higher. So rates have come up quite a bit this year. I think, our short-term portfolio is obviously invested very short, 6 months and less, and I'll show you that, but you can see those rates are great for the short-term portfolio. Our long-term portfolio is invested more in that 2, 3, 5, 6-year time frame, which I said is even higher than this graph shows now. So we've been trying to take advantage of those rates as things mature, and I'll show you that too. The S&P had a great quarter, 10.5%. You can see the dip in April on the far right as things kind of the tone kind of changed in April, and we've got exposure to this in our OPEP Trust, so that's why I show this, but you can see the individual months at the bottom, so it was positive returns each month, which was good. And so that's kind of just a little bit where things are in the economy. I think I'll just tell you a little bit about the short-term portfolio. This you've seen each quarter. It's not a lot of change in what we're doing here or our allocations. It ended the quarter at $1.24 billion, 40% in treasuries, 36% in government discount notes, and 24% in money markets. And really, we're just moving money around to find the best yield. It's like I said, it's a real short-term portfolio that's helping manage our cash flow. So no real change here. We did outperform our benchmark, as you can see on the right. It was 1.32% for the quarter. That's a quarterly return. Beat the benchmark by 5 basis points. Average yield seems to be leveling out in that it was 5.32 in the first quarter. It was 5.45 in the fourth and 5.35 in the third, which is great to be over 5% when not long ago we were near 0. So big changes in how much interest income we're getting in this portfolio. You can see the numbers there, 16.8 in the first quarter, 17.6 in the fourth, and so on. So yeah, we expect $70 million out of this portfolio this year, which is great. Any questions on that one? Then I'll jump to the long-term portfolio. This is our longer-term reserves, so we have a different mix of securities invested out a little longer. It's a smaller portfolio. It's $466 million at the end of the quarter. You can see the allocation chart. Basically the same, except you can see the green, which is our money funds, got a little smaller, and our CDs got a little bigger, which is good. We made CD purchases in January, which pushed that program up to $22 million. It's approved for 20 to 25, so we're there or very close to being filled up, which is great. But otherwise, 57% you can see is agencies, 24% treasury notes, 10% in muni bonds, and 4% in money funds, besides the 5% in CDs. This is not a lot of activity. We had maybe 35 million mature in this portfolio over the quarter that was reinvested. So we're investing at a much higher rate, which is great. We've got, you see the total return there at 0.6%, which was quite a bit better than the benchmark. That average yield is gradually ticking up as we make new investments. You can see it's 190 versus 179 for the quarter before. Duration's still really short, so we're trying to move out the curve a little bit and make some new investments to lock in some yield for longer time periods. So we're looking at adding some munis, treasury agencies, and treasuries and agencies, and we've been doing that. It's just a slow turnover with a longer term portfolio. And along with that, the interest income is gradually jumping up too. You can see the numbers, 2.3 million in the first quarter. So this is, probably a $10 million return this year, total income. So, and then the last portfolio is our OPEP Trust, which is over at the state board, but we dictate the allocation. We had another great quarter. This is always a good story for us. It's been a really good performing portfolio, and 6.9% total return for the quarter. And you can see the 5 and 10-year averages are over 10%. So it's been fabulous for us. The trust value is, you can see the numbers is in the past year or so has gone up from 308 million to 353. And within that, we also did a withdrawal of 13 million. So to pay for some OPEP expenses, which is what this is for. And we still have the great returns. We got 66% in the S&P pool over at the state board, 34% in the fixed income. We try to keep the equity about 60%, and we watch that each month. And as the equity market rallies, that keeps jumping up. So occasionally we have to readjust, but that's our goal. With April being, as I showed you, being down in the stock market, that 66% has come down already. It's more like a 63, 64 as we speak. But and the good news is our liabilities are more than fully funded, so we're in a great funding position on that portfolio also. And that concludes my comments. I'd be happy to answer questions on any of that.
Does anyone have any questions? Great report, always very thorough, doing a great job, and it's it's just I love this part of our meetings. No, I mean, it's
good
great,
news.
But it's good news.
Well, let me just tell you this though, even when it's not great news, we've got people that are managing it, to the nth degree to make sure we're getting everything we can get. That's the part where I feel so good, Mark and the team is doing a great job.
Thank you.
So
Just forget about 2022.
yeah, well, it's behind us.
Graphs around this triggering, I was thinking,
Yeah.
in fact, what was going on.
Yeah. Well, great. We appreciate that. No other questions on this? Okay, great. Let's move on to our 2024 bond sales results, which is also fun.
Yes. I'm gonna need my glasses on this one. So yes, this information is just to update this committee on the 2024 bond sale, which took place yesterday. Yes, but before I give you the details of the sale, I thought I would it's always good to mention that once again, we got our AAA ratings from both Standard & Poor's and Moody's.
Excellent.
I don't know if you've heard that or not, and I'd be happy to share the reports they produce on that. So AAA by both and stable outlooks from both. And, it's our strong credit ratings are very important. And we work hard to keep them. It attracts investors and it ensures we get good competitive sales, which we did again, to get us the best low interest rates.
Mark, can I just ask a question on that? Because I know they do the interviews and all the things that they do when they're going into, analyze and assess you. So I would only imagine though that the results of the 2023 legislative session must have also just been an extra good news as it relates to, but I mean, we had a AAA before that, so I don't know if we can have quadruple now, but I mean, that really relieved a lot of the pressure off of this enterprise and it's being acknowledged now through this process too, so.
It definitely is. I mean, Madam Chair, both of the agencies recognize the sales tax and the Metro Mobility is becoming a state-sponsored program, so that was a huge boost to our credit ratings, right? Because, they're new, but both agencies recognize that there's gonna be a great addition to us, our revenue, so,
Thank you, yeah.
yeah, for sure. So I was just gonna say, I guess that's all I had to say on the ratings before I jump into the bond sale. The council approved the bond sale back in March, and we were approved to sell one general obligation bond for environmental services capital projects. So yesterday we successfully sold a $59.64 million general obligation wastewater revenue bond, and met all the parameters that were in the resolution. And we had very strong investor interest, which was great. It was a very competitive sale. We had 11 bids submitted, which typically we'll get 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. So this was we had strong interest, and it was very competitive, which is great. The interest rate we obtained was 351, very, very close to what we had expected. We expected a 349. Our financial advisor, our municipal advisor, helps us predict what the market's doing and what investors are buying at what levels,
And who's our bond counsel again, or who's our advisor?
Baker Tilly is our
Oh,
municipal
okay, sure.
advisor.
Okay, yeah.
We have a bond counsel also.
Okay,
So we were very close to what we expected. The bids were very tight, meaning the best bid to the worst bid was only 0.09% different. So they were all really close. So we're confident with that many bids and that close that we got the best we could, and that's what the market is. It's a little harder because we've been used to super low interest rates, and some of the other financing we do for ES, we get a subsidized rate, and we're used to seeing 1s and 2s, and now we're seeing 3s, but yeah, I mean that's what it is, and we're confident with the sale was competitive, and that's what market rates are. So the final size was $59.64 million. The low bidder was Hilltop Securities, and the bonds close on June 6th. So any questions on that piece?
any questions?
Mm.
I don't have any either, so thank you again, Mark. I think this is still great news. It's not the lows that we've seen, but if you look across the span of time, I'm an optimist, just it is what it is, and they did a great job, and your team did a great job, so thank you for that. We appreciate it.
It's definitely a team effort. It takes a whole team of us right now to do those pieces. We do go through quite a process to issue the bonds and quite a process to get our ratings. So it involves people from finance, people from transit, people from parks and ES. And so shout out to everybody who helped and made it a success.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, we do appreciate your leadership. Anything else then before this body? Nothing else on the agenda? We'll see you in all the business and meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.